Welcome to the van review. This Toyota Hiace, I don't know how you pronounce it, has been our home for the last 26 days whilst here in Australia, and I thought I would do a little video review of how we've got on with the van, some of the good points about it, some of the not so good points about it. So yeah, come along, it'll be an insightful video. So as a whole, it's about 5 meters long, which is great for just everyday use. When driving around, we've driven from Sydney up to Brisbane and stopped numerous times along the way. So the size point has been really, really good. You know, it's quite narrow, as you can see. The high top bit is a good height. It's not too big. It's 3 meters in height. But yeah, so it's a good little van. It's comfortable to drive, which is a massive positive. Fuel economy is not so bad. It's costing us about £50 of British pounds to fill up, and we're getting about 300 to 350 miles out of it. So it's not the end of the world. Some features on the outside. You've got a little outdoor light, which is good. Sliding window. Those windows also open up at the top too, which is great for you're trying to let some heat out. You've got one side sliding barn door. See the back, which opens up. There's a tailgate, which can then, and we have used this numerous times, to sit under out of the rain. Got electric hookup point. I'll go into this in a sec actually about how we've managed our campsites. You've got 40 litre onboard water tank, and just in there. We ran out of gas today, which is the last morning, and it was basically gave us enough to boil a kettle for a cup of coffee. So yeah, that was a result, not having to fill up the gas bottle again. So onboard electricity, it's got a leisure battery, which we actually ran for 4 days from when we picked it up in Sydney. We had quite a long drive, so sort of 4.5, 5 hour drive to the Blue Mountains with a couple of stops, and we had no power there. So you can't use things like the microwave, you can't use the 240 volt plugs, you can use the USB. Obviously you've got a USB in the front as well with a 12 volt socket, and you've got some LED lights inside and outside, and the fridge just ticks over. So yeah, we ran it for 3 days through the Blue Mountains, and we'd booked a powered campsite. But when we got there, after the Blue Mountains when we got there, the plug wouldn't fit. We had a 15 amp plug, and the ladies' campsite was 15 amp and 10 amp, and there wasn't any 15 amp plugs left. So that night we ended up going with no power again. We did 4 days, which they don't recommend doing. They say to do 2 to 3 days of no power, but we were just very cautious, used our torches on our phone, headlight, etc. to light the van up if we needed to. And used our power banks. We've then since gone from sort of power to no power and bounced between sites until the last sort of few campsites we've then had power in every single one, which is much easier. It means you can power the fridge better. You've got a little freezer in the fridge. You can use the microwave, so if you need to reheat stuff, and you can just have the lights on in the evening and outside, and it's just peace of mind that you haven't got to worry. It also means we can charge. I have charged my laptop and stuff, those sorts of things, and we can recharge power banks. But overall, it's been really, really good. It's given us confidence that when we go back home and we jump in our van, that we know that we can use a leisure battery for sort of 3 or 4 days with comfort before we then need to charge up. The one thing the van doesn't have is anything solar powered. So if you look at the top of this caravan, it's got a solar panel up there, and the same with this Juicy van, which is another one we looked at, they have solar panels. This one doesn't. It's definitely something we would use at home. Again, gives you just that little bit extra power, peace of mind that you don't have to worry about charging your van battery with power. You can do it whilst on the run with solar panels. I'm going to show you a few things inside now on how to put the bed up, what the kitchen space is like, and the front section. So, here we go. So internal space with the bed up is pretty good. The bed size is really good. So obviously you can see by each sleeping bag you have plenty of room, which is, I guess, one of the positives of the bed layout in this van. A couple of negatives though is sleeping bags. It's not really what you want. One, it's too hot, so you don't get in the sleeping bag. And the other thing is that, you know, you tend to be, especially with Rhiannon and I, you know, you don't want to be in your own individual sleeping bag. You'd much rather a very thin duvet. And the sleeping bags are, you know, they're pretty flimsy and ripped, and they've got stuff coming out of them. The other issue is pillows. I'm a sucker for a pillow, and you get 3 pillows because you also get a bed up here that pulls out. But the pillows are really bad. They're really thin, not very comfortable at all. Another downside is the curtains. The curtains don't actually cover fully, so they let loads of light in, whereas other vans have pull down blinds, blackout blinds, etc. So they're much, much better. But it is an older van, and I would say, as I've made numerous points throughout this video, it is a bit worse for wear. It is used, and they could spend a bit of money on repairing a few bits and pieces. The other thing is that when the bed is up, you have very little space, so you can't really do a lot when the bed is up, whereas other vans, you do have a lot more space, or separate kitchen area. But overall, it's been good for 26 nights. Just a few pointers. I guess the other thing that is good is that with the bed layout this way, you can open up the back door and have, you know, in the mornings with the sunrise, or by a beach, wherever you end up camping, you can open it up and look out across whatever you're looking at. This is what I was saying, you know, how much is it to replace a sleeping bag? They're just a bit worn, a bit like the curtains really. So yeah, that's the sleeping arrangement. So now I'm going to pack up the bed, which is actually quite an easy thing to do and has inspired us to maybe look at this design for our van at home. But it's not a long job to pack it up. It's just a bit fiddly in terms of where you put bits and pieces. So roll the tape. And just like that, we are done. Pillows, then go. We just pop them up there. Like so. And we actually use these cushions, which are the cushions for the top bunk. We wedge them down the back of the bed so that you can then sit up in bed, because there is a little gap between the bed and the window. Cushion goes up here, nice and neat, and then the cushions sit up. So that is, you know, massive positive, is there's loads of space to store stuff with this van, rather than having to put everything underneath the seats. You can leave everything up here, which is pretty accessible. And that's that. That is how you pack the bed away. We paid for the table and chairs, which I think it was $30, 30 Australian dollars for the set. I guess you wouldn't not want it. If you didn't have the table and chairs, you'd have nowhere to sit, because you'd then have to sit inside, which you obviously wouldn't want to do if it's a nice evening, etc., or even just in the mornings. That the table is just a typical flimsy table. I guess the issues with it is the chairs are too low for the table, which means it's difficult to eat off. But you know, it's a camping table. What more can you ask for? Kitchen area in the van, we have microwave and then a fridge, which is a decent sized fridge, but this middle shelf is absolutely terrible, and numerous times the fridge has actually unclipped itself whilst we were driving, and we found basically half of the contents on the floor, so not ideal on that bit. As we come up, we've got a double gas cooker. Again, we've had issues with this where the flame won't stay alight because of there's something on the safety mechanism that basically keeps it alight. That is broken, and yesterday this one actually broke, so we only had one. So not ideal. A positive thing though is that there's actually a lot of working space, so a lot of prep area, and a big section in the corner there, and it is nice having the kitchen this end. You can then dart in and out. Obviously sink area, and then you've got this massive cupboard, which was where we stored a load of food, plates and cutlery, and also pots and pans. Definitely something that we would have on our van at home, just to have a lot more space. And then lastly, up here, a couple of lights. They're like LED, blue, they're dimming as well. The positioning of them though isn't great, where they sort of direct the light out rather than down. Would have been good to have maybe some drop spotlights that you could then adjust. But overall, the lighting wasn't too bad. And then there's just a load of storage which we used for like bags and bits and pieces that we were using throughout the day.